Hello, I'm JW, and today it's a repair, and this should be a fairly quick and very straightforward repair, but obviously we'll just see how that goes. And the item we're going to be repairing is this thing. Now, this is not mine, but it has been broken by somebody, and the deal is that it works off of batteries, but when you plug in the power adapter, which goes in the back in there, it does not work from it, so presumably the socket is broken or something connected to that. So we'll just open it up and have a look inside, and say it should be a fairly straightforward thing to repair. So here it is, and say it does actually work, so that part in itself isn't a problem, but the difficulty there is it only works on battery. This is the mains power adapter, so obviously it's more desirable to use it there because it gets through batteries fairly quickly. Of course it gets fairly expensive. Now, this is not an expensive item. Keyboards these days seem to come into one of two categories. They're either the high-end professional stuff, or you get the exact opposite with the very cheap other end of the scale. So let's just see what we've got here. On the back here, you've just got the power inlet, which is what's actually broken. And then we've got a couple of others here for a headphone and a microphone as well, for some reason. And then there's a bit there which would have been for AC power, but of course this one doesn't have that. It uses an external adapter. So that's pretty much it. There's nothing else on this. It's a fairly self-contained thing. So let's see if we can open it and see what's inside. Now we'll just start by removing the batteries. You can tell this is designed for children to use because the battery compartment has screws on it, because children could open the compartment and then eat the batteries. Although that's not desperately likely, but manufacturers tend to cover things like that, so we'll just remove those. So we have a mixture of batteries in here. We've got some of these Pro Elect ones from CPC probably, and then we have these Duracell ones which are probably just as good and certainly not worth the extra money paying for those. So get rid of that, and then we've got what looks like a vast number of screws all around the edge here, so we'll just remove those, and we'll come back in a moment once I've got rid of all of them. So that's all the screws removed. There seem to be a rather excessive number of them, considering it's not really holding a great deal together, but nevertheless got rid of them. So let's see what we've got inside. Now, this thing has no weight in it, so I'm not expecting a whole load of stuff to be contained within. So, right, there we have it then. So in the bottom there's nothing other than the battery compartment, and then we've just got a wire going over to the actual keys themselves. And in the top we seem to have even less. So there's just two speakers. These other ones are just Faco pieces that just sit there. Power switch there, and then presumably all of the stuff is basically on this board on the front here. That's the display on the front there with the buttons or whatever, and then we've just got this tiny little board over here which is where the actual power goes in, and that's also got the two audio connectors on, so that's presumably the audio amplifier. And yeah, we've got the wires just for the speakers coming off from that, and this one as well. So looks like we're just going to have audio amplifier there, and then the rest of the actual stuff is probably a blob on a chip on the rest of it, and then this is just this size to accommodate with the buttons and things on the front panel there. Now I know this part actually works, so we're not going to take that apart given that it's got a massive number of screws in there as well. So we'll just even get closer on that one and see what's actually broken. So here's the little board, and the power jack is here. So we'll just take this out and then we'll see what gives. The whole thing doesn't seem entirely secure, and in fact there's a problem already because the board is actually broken off on the corner, so that's certainly not a good start. I'll just take that screw out anyway. So that's the board there, and this bit on the corner has been busted off, so we're obviously missing a track around the edge, so that's presumably what the problem actually is, because whatever that track is now busted in half, so clearly that will need to be repaired. It may be possible to stick that bit back on, but I think we're going to have to put a wire across to join the offending broken track. Now we'll take this out of here because these things are actually on plug connectors, so we'll just unplug all of those, and then we can just work on this without it being attached to all these flapping wires. Now, so most of these on connectors, I've just coloured these in with a pen here in different colours, so then we'll know which one goes back where, because these three certainly are looking the same. In fact, I think all four are actually the same, so just use the colour there to identify the various points of connection. This thing is unfortunately soldered, but that does actually go to a connector on the other board, so that should be fine as well. So I'll just unplug all of these things. So here is the board, it's single-sided, and just solder that side, and then the components on this side. And these plastic columns are obviously busted out of the case there, which is what would have held it in position previously. I have to see if we can repair those in some fashion. And all I've got on here is a single chip, which is presumably some audio amplifier or something. I just see the number there is a TA2025B, and just a load of capacitors here. Just the various sockets around the edge and a single device there, so not a whole lot going on. So it's going to just be, say, a blob on the main board, and this is presumably the audio amplifying section. Now the socket and everything are still attached okay, so it does look as if it's just this corner that's the problem. So we'll see if we can make some kind of repair to that. Now there's various adhesives we could use, but to get this to stick in here quickly and efficiently, we're going to use some of this, which is basically super glue. Also sold from buying, well, it says Mitre Bond for kitchen assembly or whatever. And then it also comes with this, which is the activator. So basically it's super glue, and if you spray this on, it sets literally within 3 seconds. So you don't have to sort of sit there holding it in place. So we'll just apply some of that, and hopefully that will hold it in position. And then we'll possibly use some other glue as well to secure it a bit more permanently. So glue on there, I'll just spray the activator onto this piece, and then of course the two shall actually meet together and bond permanently. So that's that. So it's held in place there, so we may use some other glue over that later on, but at least that will secure it in place for the moment. Now obviously this track is broken, but this doesn't appear to be for the power, because though this is the DC jack here, that track just basically goes straight past over to this. And this is the connector for one of the speakers, so presumably only one of the speakers was actually working. So what we're going to do, instead of trying to join it here, we'll just join a wire from here over to here, which is basically where the track goes. And there's obviously corners going to have to be left bust, but that's what we'll do, just link across the top. And being a single-sided board, again, not a problem because it's clearly all on the side anyhow. So I'll just put the wire across from here to there. Just put a bit of solder back onto those terminals, because this unfortunately looks to be a rather poor soldering job anyway. So what we'll do is just bond these onto the terminal directly. So that's the wire just put across there, and I think we can just trim the end of that one. Yeah, there is clearance there. So that appears to be the connection of the speaker to this thing at the top here. So whether the signal comes from there or goes to there isn't too clear, but I imagine it comes from this, and when you plug in the headphone thing it just switches the output for that off. But anyway, that's basically replaced the track on the outside. That still doesn't explain why we don't have any connection from the power thing, so I think we'll just reflow these joints here, because that one in particular looks rather crusty and destroyed. And of course there's obviously something wrong here, because the battery connector is right there, so power works from that, but of course not from this. So we'll just do that there, and it's one of these looks like one of these 3-pin jobs where if you put the pin in, it then disconnects the battery, so you don't obviously power the batteries and cause them to be overheated. So we'll just plug it back in here and then see if it does actually work. So this white one just goes into the 3-pin job on the board here. So pretty much just power, common and audio or something along those lines. And then we have the plugs here which we've obviously colour coded earlier, so it should be a question of shoving them back in the appropriately coloured place. And so these are all exactly the same, so it would be very easy to just plug them into the wrong one if you hadn't made a note of where they go first. So there's the blood-stained red one, and that presumably is the purple one under there. So let's just see if that does work with the power adapter. So I'll just plug that in and took out the batteries earlier, of course, so if this does work then it's obviously working on the power. So I'll just plug in there. Right, and there we go, so that is now working correctly. Good. So electrically that is now fixed, so it's presumably one of the connections on the soldered back of the terminal was there, obviously just slightly busted because they did look rather crusty and whatever, and obviously the other one now works, so we should have sound from both sides. Now the next one we have is these mounting posts, so this one basically goes in here, sort of in there like that, and then this one was originally over in there, so we need to put these back in because we need to mount this in some secure fashion, because of course that's just where the things show through the case, so if we can't mount it here then there's no way of actually getting to these from the outside. So what I think we'll do is use that same mitre bond as before, and we'll just stick these back in the positions that they should go, and then we can look at putting some other adhesive on those later just to reinforce that. So we'll just put a smudge of glue there, and then we'll apply the activator to the other half. Now this one of course is broken from the bottom and on the side, so goodness knows what actually happened here, but obviously a substantial amount of force was applied. It may have been that when the thing was actually plugged in, that was what was knocked, because I can't see this damage occurring just from this being, say, dropped or whatever. But anyway, that would go there, and that would support the fact that this whole thing has basically been shoved that way. So as before, we'll just put some glue onto the surface of those. And then we'll just do the activator on the other part. fiddly to get these right in the correct alignment, and it's also difficult to see from this angle because I'm looking over the top of the edge of the plastic, but those two are now located in correctly position. Now super glue, well, this mitre bond is okay, but the main problem with this stuff is it's fairly brittle, so although it will glue these plastics, there's no actual real strength there, so if you just flick that it would crack the bond and fall off. So this is only really useful for holding things temporarily in place. So to fix it more securely we'll just use some epoxy, and this is a two-part epoxy. Well, these just mix together and then just apply as required. This is a 4-minute one, but it doesn't hugely matter because we're going to be leaving it overnight to set anyway. Now the easy way to mix epoxy is just use a bit of old cardboard or something and then a wooden stick, so just mix up a small amount and then use the same stick to apply it to the various things, and then you have to buy those stupid expensive wiping plastic things you can get and waste money with that. So I'll just mix up a bit here and then we'll just apply that to the various parts, and I'll also put some on the board itself so we can just bond over that cracked piece there before, so as I say we need that hole for the actual physical mounting rather than just the electrical part. And this will be obvious to anyone who's used this stuff before, but when you put the lids back on, do make sure that you put the correct coloured lid on the correct bottle, as in the blue one on the blue in this case, and of course the red on the red, because if you don't, then basically you'll be permanently gluing the lids onto the bottles and you won't be able to take them off in future. So I'll just put a bit on this bit of cardboard and we'll just mix that up. This is just a 2-part equal amounts of each. Another thing with epoxy is not to mix up vast amounts, because this particular one sets in 4 minutes, so obviously you can only use so much at a time. And of course you can always mix more, but if you've mixed too much, well, it's basically going to be wasted. So we'll just apply this to those posts and hopefully that will secure those in place rather more reliably than just the super glue. And so we'll also put some on this board so we can basically reinforce that cracked piece there. And so electrically it doesn't matter because we've got the wire now, but just to make sure that that is reasonably well secured as well. So there's a glue. The other post here is actually okay, that wasn't busted because of course the board is what broke rather than the post in that case. So just leave this to set for however long it takes and then we'll come back shortly. And if you use the actual wooden stick on the what you've got left here, you can then determine whether it's set or not, because of course this will then stick to the cardboard. So some minutes later and the glue is now set, so you see the stick is now well and truly stuck onto the bit of cardboard. So that's perfectly fine. So if that's obviously set, then we know what's here is set as well. So all that remains then is just get this thing manoeuvred back in place and then put the 3 screws into the 3 columns which are holding it in place there. So just get those lined up. So screws are in place and we'll just clean off some of that horrible flux residue because it's fairly unpleasant, so let's get rid of what we can. So that should do it. So all left then is just put this upside down and then put all those dozens of screws back in the bottom. So that's that repaired, and as expected at the beginning it was fairly straightforward, although that broken track didn't appear to be related to the power supply issue at all. But nevertheless it now worked and both the speakers do work. The Phaco speakers of course just for decoration only. So it does seem to work. There is a sort of demo thing on it. So it's not a terrible thing, but nevertheless that's it for this time. So until next time, thanks for watching.